The cartel is going to be defeated, and likely in the next 6 to 12 months.
Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. This is an in-the-moment update, a very important update with Andy Hoffman from Miles Franklin. Look guys, the world is imploding and you're not going to hear about it from CNBC. That's why you come to us at SGT Report. Andy, how are you?
Good. Pretty soon you will be hearing about it from CNBC. Remember, they have all-time low ratings right now, so at some point they're going to have to tell the truth or else they're going to lose them entirely.
Yeah, well, we're winning the battle on multiple fronts here in the truth community because CNN, as you know, is also at all-time low ratings. The only time their ratings go up is when one of these false flag acts of terror occurs, and then they cover that ad nauseum, thereby removing Hillary Clinton's crimes from the mainstream press front pages. Hey, I want to talk specifically right now. I want to start with silver. Andy, you wrote today, Bank Montepaschi and $20.46 silver, infamously linked for posterity. There is a battle happening between the cartel and gold and silver, as you know and you've documented, but they are losing that battle, aren't they, Andy?
Yes, and again, while so many people, let alone our enemies, but in our community, just were continually saying, look, the commercials have a high short position. That means we're definitely going to get a smash, which of course just churns people and prevents people from protecting themselves. And they didn't look and see what was going on behind the scenes, how they were not able to, how they tried so many times to cover those short positions and failed. The best example was back in May when, out of the blue, amidst all the horrible economic data, they suddenly came up with this, the Fed's going to raise interest rates, and they tried to push prices down. And they got gold to go from 1,300 to 1,200 and silver by, I think it went down $1 or so, but it immediately rebounded right back. And when you saw the COT reports, you saw that they were not able to cover the shorts. And in my view, there was absolutely no other reason that they did that but to try to cover their shorts. And the reason they can't is because there's so much competition now from all the institutions that are buying that they literally can't do it even on big downswings because they don't last long. And then after that, we continually saw these record short positions get bigger and bigger. And whether it was bad economic news or the Brexit or simply the price goes down and they try to cover desperately and they can't, they've gone up and up and up. And here we saw the COT report on Friday as of last Tuesday showed another record high short position in silver. And that was before Wednesday and Friday's big surges after the FOMC meeting and the GDP report, let alone today. So my guess is you're going to see another record short position in silver on Friday as of tomorrow afternoon. And the scary thing about this is that we're talking about now silver is about to break above its 50-week moving average, not 50-day moving average, 50-week moving average of $20.46 an ounce, which is no surprise. It's exactly where it's trading right now. It first went up there on July 3rd. Remember when we had our conference call over the holiday when it went to $21 briefly and then came back down? Well, it's been pushing. And the data and the economic and political situation has gotten so bad that they are at the verge of being blown out of the water. And my guess is once it gets above the 20.46 per ounce and just hangs out there for a little bit, the amount of buy stops out there is going to be astronomical. And we're already at the tightest supply-demand situation in the history of mankind for silver. Heck, 10% of the COMEX silver registered inventory was withdrawn on Friday alone. So I think we're in for an historic breakout of blowing away of the cartel in the second half of this year. And it's not just that, of course. It's going to be accompanied by a very, very scary and dangerous world, as evidenced by all these political movements that are going on. Because, I mean, look at these stress tests. If anyone actually saw the stress test, what they were testing for, it's comical. Because the current situation is far worse than what they were stressing for. And most of the banks, frankly, failed. And, they bailed out this Bank Montepaschi, the third biggest Italian bank, over the weekend, $5 billion bailout. That'll last probably for a couple of weeks. But it's already being discounted by the market. UniCredit, which almost failed as well, that's the biggest bank in Italy. It's down 10% today to almost an all-time low. So I think the whole European thing is going to blow up like a nuclear bomb sometime soon. And God, what's going on in Japan? And look at our GDP data. I mean, basically the whole Fed's going to raise rates meme is dead in the water. It's time for when's the Fed going to cut rates? And, I'm just terrified what the second half's going to look like. And for people who have not protected themselves yet, I mean, come on, what are you waiting for?
All right, before we move away from silver, though, I want to just hit this because you, Andy, more than any other analyst out there, have spoken about the Sunday night sentiment in the raids by the cartel that are weekly. I mean, absolutely like clockwork, but they're starting to fail. Their PM overnight raids are starting to fail. Is this because of the SGE? It seems to me that's the only thing that could have prevented these guys from being able to do this forever.
Right, and you're talking about, I first wrote about Sunday night sentiment attacks, God, before I even joined Miles Franklin 5 years ago, which simply means they either cap any attempted rise or they smash. When the market opens here, it's about 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time every week. We're now at 151 of the past 157 Sundays, and for that matter, 673 of the past 775 trading days at the 2:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time open of the London pre-market trading session. So they just try and they try and they try. In fact, we're up today big during the day, but guess what? Not one, but two Sunday night sentiment attacks last night and a 2:15 a.m. raid. The point is, for instance, last week, big week for gold and silver. Every single day, gold and silver, I woke up and they were down. And this is what we've been used to for years. But they're failing for many reasons. Is the Shanghai Gold Exchange taking a bigger part of it? Absolutely. How much? I don't know. I would simply attribute, generally speaking, the fact that we are now in a global bull market in precious metals, and that's why the comics shorts can't, the commercials can't cover their shorts. It's why these raids are failing left and right. It's why even when they put out, quote, good economic data like last month's 287,000 jobs, LOL, still gold and silver went up. So again, we're talking about we're going to have an explosion like a tea kettle that's been whistling for an hour that's going to just explode. And it happened to the London Gold Pool in the 1960s. It happened at the end of the 1970s, and it happened at the end of the 1990s with the Washington Gold Agreement when we started the latest gold bull market. But here where we just had it interrupted for 4 years by an all-out attack on precious metals. It started in 2011. The problem is that the world has gotten much worse, and now the gold price is at an all-time high or close to it in pretty much every currency in the world. So all that's left is for the center of manipulation to break down. And we're not even talking about forgetting all the bad things that are going around the world that are going to cause demand to exponentially increase in the coming weeks and months. I'm talking about right now, supply demand are meeting. We're talking about a runaway locomotive going downhill during a blizzard is what we're talking about right now. The cartel is going to be defeated, and likely in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, and I just want to say this, guys, as it pertains to documenting the collapse, which is what Andy and I do when we speak once a month, we're documenting the collapse of the petrodollar. We're documenting the collapse of the world's fiat currencies. We coined that term because it is exactly what we're doing. Andy, I recently heard a podcast from Small Gold, whose articles we post, but now he's starting to do a little podcast update thing. And so I was listening to it the other day, and he mentioned that he thinks those who, quote-unquote, document the collapse, they may be off base because the collapse may never come. The cartel may be able to keep this thing propped up forever.
Even though gold has had a tremendous run this year, the equity markets have outpaced gold as of July 22nd so far. So for all the people talking about documenting the collapse and collapse is imminent, wouldn't be so sure, because if central banks can print money and buy stocks, as we'll see later, they can push the stock market wherever they want to push it. They can put the prices of gold and silver almost wherever they want to push them.
We know that China right now, as we speak, they're having meetings, Andy, about backing their currency with gold. Willem Middelkoop has spoken about that. It's happening right now. These meetings are happening.
So you have the West telling you gold is not important and we don't need it anymore. And you have the East adding as much to their gold reserves as possible and working towards the next phase in which they will make gold important again into the financial system. And when the US and the IMF don't agree and don't want to participate in this, China and Russia could decide to start a gold-backed currency themselves.
And the death of the dollar is coming. And in fact, I just interviewed Mitch Firestein, who wrote Planet Ponzi. And Mitch said this. I want to play this soundbite for y'all.
What's going to happen is a country is going to come out with a currency that's based upon tangible assets and redeemable for silver, gold, copper, or oil, or a basket where you can redeem it for something. Because when you print money, I mean, look, the Federal Reserve started in 1913. And since 1913 to now, I think the value of the dollar has gone down by about 98 cents. So, I mean, they've debased the currency to a point where we're almost in oblivion and the debt can never be repaid.
Okay, that's very important. Could you hear that?
I did, and I have several comments about it.
Okay, that is so important, Andy. The debt can never be repaid. So I want your opinions on what Mitch just said there, because is it going to be China? I think it'll probably be China that is the country he's talking about. He wrote that 2 years ago. And the second thing I wanted to ask you is, could it be the United States? Because now we're importing all this mysterious gold from Switzerland. So your impressions on Mitch's comments there.
Okay, first of all, to the person who said that it'll never happen, cartel will go on forever. I've said this more than anything else I've said all year. There's 300 million Americans and 7.2 billion people in the rest of the world. And of that 7.2 billion people, the vast majority, not some, the vast majority are holding currencies in which gold is priced at or near, or in some cases well above the previous all-time high. And in most of those places, you can't even get gold because you don't have a supply chain to do so, or there's taxes or regulations. So to believe that to say that the cartel is winning because gold is down 30% from the high 4 years ago, while the rest of the world is seeing an exploding bull market, is ridiculous. Let alone because we're in a big bull market right now, which is only getting stronger with each passing day, and the money printing and the negative interest rates and the political events and the economy collapsing. To say that they'll never win, they'll just be able to do this forever, absolutely ridiculous. As for gold backing, I have to disagree, and I've said very vocally about what I think the end game is, because I don't believe that anyone will ever trust any government issuance of currency at all. I wouldn't trust China or the United States or anyone to issue a gold-backed currency, because they could abuse it like heck. We had a gold standard and Nixon just unilaterally got off it. We say we have 8,000 tons. Who believes that? Who knows what the Chinese have? So I don't believe there'll ever be a gold standard. I just think gold will be money, meaning people will use it to store value as they have for 5,000 years. It was like, Harry Dent was another one. He keeps talking about the gold bugs don't understand that gold is not money. It could never be money because we now have an information-based society and you can fit all the gold in a swimming pool. Well, yeah, it's not going to be money in the sense that it's government-backed money. It's going to be money by the real definition of money, is that it's a store of value and people are willing to trade goods and services for it. That's all. I just think it's going to be a store of value. And frankly, I think the future money is going to be digital, because no one's going to trust any government to ever issue anything ever again. That's my view on it. Our government's going to try to create things to like saying that they're gold-backed things. I don't know. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. We have to see how things play out. The one thing I do know is that the purchasing power of physical gold and silver, particularly because they've been manipulated down for so many years, is going to rise exponentially in the coming years. And I'll worry about what the next money will be when we get to that chasm. And that's the thing I've said all along. I wrote an article 3 or 4 years ago called "Is Gold Money? Who cares?" And I was referring to the fact that I don't own it because I think there's going to be a gold standard. I mean, maybe they will, maybe they won't. I own it because I know that all the fiat currencies in the world will be decimated and destroyed, as every fiat currency in history has been. And since we're in the final stages, the death throes of the biggest fiat global Ponzi scheme in history, I know that time is coming, and it's coming soon. And because of all the manipulation, it's going to be like putting kerosene on a fire.
Well, Andy, there's still a lot left to cover here in our remaining 10 minutes. And, again, as we document the collapse, guys, we provide quantifiable information. Caterpillar retail sales have declined for 43 consecutive months. Bernanke's begging Japan to print trillions more yen, and the Bank of Japan apparently is more than happy to do so. And we can talk about that too, Andy. But before we do, I want to ask you, what's going on in the U.S.? SRS Rocco is reporting record Swiss gold flow into the United States. We've never seen it before. Why is this gold coming into the United States, Andy?
Well, that's a good question. In the big picture, the gold's been flowing out to Switzerland. The fact that it's suddenly changed, assuming that the numbers are even legitimate, because who believes anything that the government publishes about the topic of gold? I don't know. Do they need it to cover physical delivery requirements on the COMEX or the GLD?
Yeah.
Or is it some wealthy billionaires who are buying it, or corporations that we don't know about, or municipalities? Well, I don't know. I just don't know what the answer is, especially because I can't trust the data. But I can tell you one thing: the 8,133.5 tons the U.S. government says that they have at Fort Knox, West Point, and Denver, they don't have. I would be surprised if they have any of it. And if any of it is still left sitting in the vaults, it's probably encumbered to someone else, like in China. So again, I have no idea what those flows mean. But the one thing I do know about gold flows that I can trust is the fact that the COMEX continues to show plunging silver inventories to the point that it's only like $500 million worth, and there's no way that they would publish that unless it was true, because it's only going to fuel the fire of people realizing how scant it is. And look at the institutional flows into the GLD and the SLV. So whether or not they're actually buying all the physical gold that they say they are, I don't know. But I do know that institutions, which I've been talking about all year, are slowly but surely swamping the cartel. That's why PSLV, the Sprott Fund, was able to do an offering earlier in the year, in early April. And guess what? It marked the bottom of the silver price, just like it marked the bottom back in 2010 when they did their IPO, which caused the price of silver to go up to $50 5 months later. That's why you're seeing the mining stocks soar. It's why you're seeing the GLD's inventories soar. It's because there's just too much competition right now to buy what's out there. And at some point, the paper games are going to be completely swamped by fear. It's not just going to be greed of buying like the GLD. They're going to actually want the real stuff, and not just institutions, but municipalities and states and governments. And guess what? The gold and silver are just not going to be there. And that's when you're going to have that aha moment where you realize that we're back in 2008, where the supply is just not there. And I wrote back in June, I wrote an article, The Upcoming Historic Silver Shortage. And since we've had shortages in 2008, 11, 13, and 15, the latter two without even a visible crisis, what kind of shortage do you think we're going to have this time around? Because I believe that we are heading into the biggest financial crisis in the history of mankind, because this time, as you said, as Mitch Firestein said, all the debt's going to be written off, maybe even during the end of the Jubilee year in October, and all the currencies are going to collapse, as many of them have already.
Yeah, that's right, Andy. And here's how I think we should wrap up. We should wrap up by talking about hell on earth, which would be hyperinflation of the petrodollar. Look, if you guys want to see hell on earth, look no further than what's going on right now in Venezuela. Andy, I read over the weekend that Venezuelans were trying to flee to Colombia through the border and the border security in Colombia, and those that made it through and made it to grocery stores that were filled with food wept. That's how bad it is in Venezuela, guys, and I think it's coming here. The Burrito Index, as Zero Hedge is reporting, Andy, consumer prices have soared 160% in the United States since 2001, and our money is losing its purchasing power much faster than the government would like us to believe. So as we document the collapse, we talk about the end of the dollar's reign as the world's reserve currency. That's number one. Number two, the insanity, the Keynesian money printing globally, as exemplified by Japan. You've said that Japan will be the first world nation to hit hyperinflation, and it appears that you're right. Are they honestly going to continue with this Keynesian money printing madness and print, $20 trillion more and force themselves into a hyperinflationary scenario?
Yeah, as we actually on Zero Hedge say, they put in perspective how much they're buying, because the Bank of Japan announced last week they're going to double their ETF purchases. They already owned more than half of as of last year, they owned more than half of the ETF market. And now they're doubling the amount of purchases. It would be the equivalent of the Fed owning $400 billion of stocks now and then buying another $600 billion in the next 2 years, to the point where they're going to own the entire stock market and it'll be a communist nation. I mean, that's what's going to happen in Japan. The only reason, by the way, that the yen is not collapsing is because it's the funding currency of the yen carry trade. So everyone's unwinding that trade, and frankly, that's a much worse scenario for the rest of the world than it would be if the yen just collapsed. And that's exactly why it's happening. They're Keystone cops. They don't know what they're doing. They want the yen to fall, which of course would be terrible for them, but they can't get it to fall, so it's terrible for the rest of the world and them by default. So again, will they keep doing it? Of course they'll keep doing it. If they stopped, if the Bank of Japan had said on last Friday, enough is enough, we just got to let the chips fall as they may and hope things will go well. Guess what? The Nikkei would probably be down 20% in the following week. And that's the whole point. That's the whole point of what's going on right now. Particularly, remember, there's an election coming up in two months here. So not only do we have the PPD going berserk every single day, I mean, can you imagine that they've had the Dow and the NASDAQ up most of today with oil prices, I mean, completely collapsing. We're below $40 a barrel now. Deutsche Bank completely collapsing right now. The economic data across the board horrible. The GDP report on Friday. I mean, you just can't have worse news everywhere. And the reason is they're trying to keep things up because of the election. And, once that election passes, my God, I can't even imagine what the world is going to look like when the incentive to even take your foot off the gas pedal for like 1 millimeter is going to be there, let alone if they took it off, just took a day off, an hour off, everything would collapse. Gold would be up $500 in the day. Dow would crash. That's how close we are to the end right now.
Well, that's why we document the collapse, guys, because the collapse is happening behind the scenes in earnest. And CNBC really is not reporting about it. Neither is Fox News, neither is CNN. They'll just throw fluff at you all day long. And if you want the real news, the real goods, the real information, you got to come to SGT Report, and you got to read Andy's daily articles at milesfranklin.com. Andy, tell them how they can protect themselves.
Right, Miles Franklin, we've been in business for 27 years without a single registered complaint. And not only that, we have a brand new website you need to check out. We're going to have some brand new storage options unique that no one else has. We're going to be announcing shortly. Just give us a call at 800-822-8080 or email me at ahoffman@milesfranklin.com.
Well, very good. Andy, thanks again for your time, and thanks for helping us document the collapse, because that is what we are doing, and we're going to continue to do it as we roll right into 2018, and the Rothschilds predicted, get ready for a world currency. Let's see if they've lost control or if they can actually hoodwink us into that. Andy, thanks for your time.
Absolutely.
And guys, thank you for your support at sgtreport.com. We truly do appreciate your likes of these videos. We appreciate it when you share them with others, and we really love your comments. Thanks again for your support. Have a terrific week. Bye-bye.